Hello, everyone, and I welcome you here at yet another live interview we're having this week. Well, this week we're opening it with Yanina Petrovskaya, attorney at law at RLP of Liechtenstein, and she promised to kind of share some insights to why selecting a proper domain for any blockchain business or startup is essential in 2018 and the nearest future. Hello, Yanina.
Hello, Dennis. Thank you a lot for inviting me to the summit, which is going to take place soon in Basel, and also thank you for inviting me to this interview.
My pleasure. Well, I will try to address some basic questions that we expect our audiences to have. Anyway, over the last couple of years, we have seen quite a bunch of stuff going with blockchain startups and projects, and we could see businesses mainly go into the domains where it was A, easier, B, cheaper to get legalized and to get established. Now we understand that there's definitely something more important beyond that, and the price of the initial action is probably not the main cost or not the main determiner of choosing a domain. You are going to be representing your company of Liechtenstein, and we know that this is quite a popular domain for blockchain businesses right now. There's quite a bunch of infrastructural development and legal development in Liechtenstein. So if I right now am working with a blockchain and I need to have a company international with accounts and stuff, why do I choose Liechtenstein? Why do I choose your services? What kind of services, by the way, do I choose?
If you start a blockchain project, most of them are either planning to have an ICO or STO, some are crypto funds or crypto exchanges. That's the request that we get mainly right now. We are Liechtenstein-based attorneys, and we provide full range of legal services. But of course, when starting the projects, when looking for a jurisdiction, well, right now I will highlight some of the points that I'm going to talk about in my presentation. But anyway, you should have a sort of checklist of the things which are the most important for your project. And one of them is timeline, the other one is budget, general quality of the country and jurisdiction also really counts. And it's something which is really difficult to measure. And that's why in the past, former pure offshore jurisdictions introduced themselves as crypto-friendly. But what we've observed that if the jurisdiction itself, if the law itself didn't work really well in this country, and you add blockchain regulation to the construction that didn't really work before, it wouldn't work anyway. So that's what people see right now with some of the jurisdictions which introduce them to be crypto friendly. I don't want to offend anyone, but we've heard about some difficulties in Malta, in Gibraltar, in Estonia. Liechtenstein, the same as Switzerland, have its own points that are to be considered before starting a project, but you really should consider everything, not just an article on Cointelegraph that one jurisdiction seems to be crypto-friendly, so you should go there. But consider everything, because you basically vote with your feet. It's the same as choosing a country to live in or to build your whole project there. So it shouldn't be too easy, and you shouldn't really consider only time and costs, because jurisdictions where you can do it really fast and cheap, they normally, to be honest, they just don't check your project. They issue sort of license, we call it license, but it's not a proper license. They do not really check your project and they do not really care whether the investors are protected.
So speaking about what you call crypto friendliness of various domains, to your list I could also add quite a bunch of commonly known international, sometimes called offshore zones, but in this case they were not used for the offshore but for the ease of registry. And also we could think of Singapore and Hong Kong and stuff. Well, there were definitely some limitations, but they all claim to be crypto friendly, and I personally have worked with several projects that deliberately went to establish their company in one of those countries. And first they actually got hooked by the promise of the easiness, of the friendliness of the system, of the friendliness of the environment. And in just months, or probably a matter of half a year, they found out that all that friendliness for them mainly boiled down to the mere ability to pay taxes. It was just that back then, some couple of years ago, so most ICOs or most let's say most businesses which had tokens, not necessarily ICOs, but anyway, most tokenized businesses were simply unable to proceed with A, establishing a bank account in the country, B, reporting their cash flow, because it was just for, I mean, even now for many countries, for a majority of countries, it actually remains impossible just to report your cash flow with any sort of crypto. It just doesn't seem to exist for quite many authorities. And then yet another thing was that those countries just welcomed them to pay taxes. Basically, there was no infrastructural support, for which many of those projects that I worked with, in the end, decided to still continue to operate in those domains for probably yet another half a year or so, and then to completely migrate to one of the European domains as Switzerland or Liechtenstein. Now, if we are looking at establishing and running and at the prospect of running a business in the long term, what do we actually now consider a crypto-friendly environment? What are the postulates of that? Like that's your ability to get a bank account, your ability to pay taxes, yes, but what is it actually that makes it friendly for your business?
Well, I would say it's the same as for every business. You should look at a country which has good rankings in economy, in doing business, because that reflects a lot. If people are able to bring their economy to a certain stage, if they are quite high in doing business rankings, that's one of the criteria. Then it means that besides of the blockchain, other things would also work in the country. Like if you only have friendly blockchain regulation, it doesn't necessarily mean it will work like it is written. So of course you need banks, and there are several already, quite a lot I would say, in Switzerland and in Liechtenstein. They just try to avoid to market themselves too much to plenty of international projects, especially scammy projects, and that's why they mostly market themselves only to their existing clients or partners. That's what we see right now. So you should look at the country in general, how things work in the country in general, and of course you wouldn't really find a lot of fuck up cases in the internet, but you should really, that's my recommendation, talk to the people who are already there. Talk to the, really ask them, I don't know, write them personal messages, ask them to have a WhatsApp, a Skype, a Zoom, whatever call, to get the insider experience, because in a lot of people, they don't really like to talk about things. That's what I experience in a lot of conferences. People talk about things that are great. They talk about jurisdictions, especially if they work there. They talk about jurisdictions only in a positive way, and they do not really give a sort of negative feedback or feedback on things which should be done better. For example, Switzerland and Liechtenstein are great, but sometimes things do not work as fast as people want it. And that's good to know in advance.
So, say, an example I could refer to was I was speaking to a founder of one startup. I will do no promotion because it was complete scam, total, like the crystallized scam of 2017. You know, the proper, the legal proper scam, the definition of it, and I asked them of how they were actually going on and how everything was working out for them, and they said that they went to Switzerland to find investors there, to get registered there, to do all sorts of stuff there. And what I actually found out was that with mainly BVI, Singapore, and other projects, you know, when I worked at like assessment and a bit of due deal, well, at least what was available for due deal back then for ICOs, it was mainly about just trying to find at least something that resembled the presence of that company in the legal field of the country that they worked at, that they were operating in, but when they just told me about Switzerland, it was quite easy to find out that there was truly nothing going on. It's kind of a more transparent environment than quite many. So I do understand why, let's say, I as an investor would prefer, say, a company registered in Liechtenstein or Switzerland, because it's just that I know that the environment is friendlier for me. It's more accustomed to protecting my rights and my dividends. But what shall be the actual advantage for the startup? I mean, let's say we're not assuming it's scam, which is trying to deceive anyone. But they're now looking at, well, let's say market possibilities, and they do count, you know, like prices and losses and profits. And well, many say that, many actually tell me, okay, you're working with these guys from Switzerland, you know, like their service is extremely expensive, and yes, we could get registered there, we could get accounts there, but it costs us like 5 times more. Why should we? Yes, I know that in about 6 months or so, they actually do realize why. But since the initial question for most businesses, at least in the 2017 and at least the first half of 2018, was how do I get money with an ICO? How do I attract investment with an ICO? The question of how do I run the business later was quite postponed, at least in their imagination, at least in their perspective. And yes, many of them eventually decided to switch to a different domain once the stuff was done. But speaking about the ICO itself, like not the operational side of the business when everything is launched, but the ICO itself, is there any advantage if, let's say, I go to Liechtenstein and, let's say, speak to your company and request your services and let's say refer anyone from my network into to get registered in Liechtenstein?
Well, I would say that Liechtenstein has a lot of advantages for those who would like to target, first of all, European markets. Because Liechtenstein, as part of European Economic Area, has access to European financial markets, which means your token, which is issued within the security token offering, for instance, can be offered in the whole Europe. That's one of the main advantages, and I think right now only Malta and Gibraltar can offer more or less the same. The other thing is, of course, investor protection, because it takes longer to launch your STO or any other blockchain project in Switzerland and Liechtenstein, also partly because the regulator like to make sure that it's not a scammy project. They really check everything, and it means protection both for you and for your investors. Because if the regulator has checked your project and everything goes well, that means that you have done everything. And on the other side, investors feel also they're better protected than in any other jurisdiction, because the regulator has already done this job, has already checked the project. I would say these are the main advantages: access to the European market and protection of both founders and investors.
Well, that kind of gives me an image that, yes, I can attract more investors simply saying, okay, I'm registered at a very good domain here, like Liechtenstein. You can find it on a map. Well, you can hardly find it on a map, but if you just Google about it, you will see I'm secure, I'm great, I'm good, I'm reporting, I'm transparent. I will not disappear tomorrow or any other day. So basically the same as Switzerland. But that basically means that this is just my way to get established. But what about the operational side? Like, I mean, is there any reason to go to Liechtenstein for the operation? Like I mean, or can I just stay, you know, like sitting in Hong Kong or somewhere with all of my business running there and probably globally, but get registered at Liechtenstein? Does it make any sense for me to move my operational business there?
It does, because of the taxes, because they have only 12.5 corporate tax, which is quite low compared to a lot of other countries. And one of the main advantages of Liechtenstein and Switzerland both is that you actually can talk and agree with tax authority and get a tax ruling when the company is established, or a pre-ruling when the company is not there. And that's one of the major advantages, that you actually can talk and get the information and negotiate with authorities about how much you're going to pay. And the other thing for operational business is also that all the legal formalities, maybe also the regulator, I mean, to get the SPO and serious jurisdiction in 2 to 3 months, it's quite fast. And with the new blockchain act, it will take from 1 to 2 months from the beginning of the next year. So a lot of things work really fast here. Like if I would like to get, you know, also for blockchain projects, they need registry extract that their company is registered here, they need it with a postal. It takes 15 minutes here to get this document. And that's the fastest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I've been in several countries where it takes from a couple of days to several weeks. Here it takes like 15 minutes. And a lot of things work pretty fast because the countries are small, authorities are small, and authorities are also bound by a range of rules. Like they are really bound to safeguard your rights, because if they do something wrong, in some cases they may be even liable for damages, and it works, which doesn't really work in a lot of other countries as far as I know.
So the situation like it happened in China when there was a huge boom of the crypto and ICO, and then just one day they say it's over, it's gone, you're banned, you're closed, that's it. Shall not happen, at least without a good reason and without like without prior consent.
Absolutely, absolutely. Even we've heard about it, actually one till now, just let's talk about also bad things which happen in every jurisdiction. Till now, we've heard one project that seemed to use some fraudulent practices, like investor fraud, and the ICO was stopped, but it was not done any sort of officially. You wouldn't find anything in media. Just the market here in Switzerland and Liechtenstein is so small, and everyone who advises blockchain businesses, both lawyers and advisors, we just share sometimes the information what is happening. But on the other hand, no one really come to the project and act really rude. They're really obliged to safeguard your rights, even if you do something wrong.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's definitely an advantage. And since anyway, what I can see now, as I said, I only referred to some projects that I worked with, and it was more than half a year ago. So, but currently what we're looking at is, I believe anyway, the market prices will stabilize basically everywhere, because, well, people are getting some guidelines, they're getting some understanding of what to do and how to do and where to do, and basically that evens the prices out. But, well, as we would definitely like to remind everyone, we are gonna have quite a bunch of time dedicated to a broad section of the startup competition and ICO and tokenized business expertise in Basel, well, let's say, do you actually expect to take a look at those, to probably offer them cooperation or your service to those businesses? Can they actually expect to find some to learn some ways to get incorporated, let's say in Liechtenstein, there at the conference? Will you give them some guidelines of what to do?
Well, that is actually my point part of my presentation or keynote speech, whatever you would like to call it. That's what I'm going to share with people. My checklist, what is really important for blockchain projects when choosing a domain. We've basically touched upon today timeline and budget and reputation of the jurisdiction, its place in rankings, and also experience other projects that.
But will you tell them what shall they do, step by step?
Do you mean when choosing a domain, or when already there?
No, let's say they are already there. I mean, we have invited a whole lot of already running developing startups. I mean, yes, they're startups, but developing, that's not like what it used to be at the stage of, we have printed out our white paper. We're good to go. Well, it's not that case. So, okay. But apparently, many of them will appreciate mentoring and advising and stuff. So can they expect, well, I mean, I ask it every participant who has anything to do with regulation or finance or media, can the businesses attending our summit expect some cooperation from your side? Can they actually come up to you, get your business card, discuss some work process, get some mentoring, get some advice, plan let's say your future cooperation and stuff like that?
Well, absolutely. That's what actually conferences are for. To meet with other people, to share what you can share with them. And I share a lot with our contacts, with our friends, with clients, with potential partners. And I think that's the only way we can all together build very good ecosystem when we share our experience. To make point with which I would share, of course, with a lot of blockchain startups, that it's important which domain you choose. It should be for yourself go through the checklist, and when choosing a domain, you should definitely look what kind of financial license you need, and what sort of financial regulations apply to your project. Because what we've seen in a lot of projects in the past, that they've, like as you said, they said, we have a white paper, we're good to go. It didn't really care whether they need any sort of license from the regulator or any sort of approval. And at the end, it turned out that they needed one, but they didn't have one, so their operations had to be stopped. And the same cases with KYC IML. It seems to be obvious to us maybe, but not to a lot of other projects. They do not really understand why not having proper KYC IML procedure may really ruin both their business and reputation. Because that is also one of the cases when regulator most likely is going to interfere.
So you will be telling those businesses and startups of how to get incorporated in Liechtenstein and how to pass the KYC, how to get all those bank accounts, and how to start working in Liechtenstein.
That's true. That's true.
You'll be stealing a part of our pie because we work in Switzerland. I'm sorry, I have to cross you out of the agenda. You are not welcome no more.
Yes, I'm, on the one hand, I'm sorry for that, but on the other hand, I think that it's also good having several jurisdictions sort of competing. And I believe that there is a competition between the countries for great businesses, great brains, great people, and that's all right. That's good for business people. If countries compete for them using crypto-friendly regulation, using really good tax rates, favorable tax rulings, giving other advantages, countries just compete for good businesses and good people, and that's perfectly okay.
Well, definitely, yes. We do find we do find the better means of development in competition. But still, I believe that right now at this incredibly young market, there is so much room for basically everyone. But I'll still keep my fingers on the agenda, so just in case, you do remember, we can just out of a sudden lose your ticket or something, pretend we've never seen you.
No, I do believe that. Well, what some of the projects, also some of our projects do right now, because FINMA in Switzerland is a little bit really overloaded with requests. They keep their business in Switzerland, and they do, for example, their STO, they do it in Liechtenstein. So it doesn't really mean they leave Switzerland, they have it, but the STO is just faster in Liechtenstein. And
we do have a question right there from the chat. So okay. I'm sorry, I do not see the the author's name or nickname, but anyway, it says, what makes it easier for the project to get authorized and register the quickest possible way?
Well, yes, the project has to do a lot of work itself, because the most important thing, for example, for an STO, we do not talk about exchanges of funds, is the tokenomics. I mean, how the business model itself, and it should be already there. If you have a product, you should already have business model, business plan there, everything, how money is going to work in your project. And you either do it yourself or you do it with advisor. And if it's ready, it's much easier and faster for us and for the regulator to get company established. It's just a couple of weeks. It's the same as several weeks to get a tax ruling, but it takes 2 to 3 months to get the license from the regulator. And the worse the project is prepared with business model and everything, the longer it takes to get the approval from the regulator.
Mm-hmm. So basically, the further a business goes away from the wow, we've got the white paper phase, and the closer they get to the actual market realization, the better. So it's not just about, I mean, like it happens in many countries. It's not about having your company registered, like, or your cash flow running for like 5 years at least. It's about the readiness of the product and the actual aptitude for the market.
Yeah, also clear business model, having a clear business plan to be also clear for the regulator.
But they can still be young businesses, so like the market is open for new, fresh entrepreneurs if they are smart, well designed, and aiming for some positive development. Well, let me just scroll the chat a bit more just to make sure if there's anyone missing there. Well, no, I believe no one is. Well, okay, so as I said, I'm really glad to welcome you at the summit. Hope to see you there, November 23rd, 24th. By the way, I don't really work with that part of the preparation for the summit, but everyone, if you're watching us, do check it out on the website. There was something about some discounts for the tickets and stuff like that. I mean, it's not that I remember exactly the details, but do check it out. So there's a way to get it, like, with a discount now. And yes, Yanina, thank you very much for the interview. Anyway, I always try to interrupt you somewhere, you know, like to leave the big story for summit, you know, not to have it here. And yes, I really appreciate your intention to cooperate with the networking to provide some sort of advisory expertise, probably just suggestions and or mentoring, or at least an intention to cooperate with the businesses and startups there in Basel. That's what we definitely need, and that's what actually, as you said, makes a good event. Yeah. So then I guess, well, some time ago when we started those interviews, I used to say, see you there in a couple of months in November. Well, now it's see you there in, I believe, less than 2 weeks. Yeah. So in less than a fortnight. And yes, let's try to, I mean, even though it's definitely not something I shall be, but let's try to promote Liechtenstein as well. We will be friendly. Okay.
Thank you a lot for your time for promoting Liechtenstein, and we'll be happy to see you and all these startups and great people, I'm sure, at the summit in Basel.
Well, it's all our pleasure. And thank you, everyone. Stay tuned to us. We'll have more lives with our experts and attendance of the summit. And as I said, visit our website, register. There are some discounts for tickets, and please attend us. Please see us. We'll try to make the market much better than it used to be. Thank you all. Have a good one.